أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome to a new series where we're going to be discussing Ziyarat Jamia Kabira in a much different format. We're going to take some specific verses with specific themes and dissect them to understand the position and the status of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So Ziyarat Jamia, given that it is from Imam Hadi alayhi salam, it holds very special place in understanding the Imams because of whom it was narrated from whom it was given. So that since Imam Hadi alayhi salam taught the ziyarah to one of his companions, we can use it in understanding the fada'il and the maqam and the status of the Ahlul Bayt, or rather the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Now the first theme that we want to discuss is the relationship of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt to the Prophet. So the first verse goes, Assalamu alaikum ya Ahl Bayt al-Nubuwwa. So first we need to understand who are the Bayt al-Nubuwwa and why does the Imam start with this specific line. So let's cross-reference with the Quran. Let's bring one verse of the Quran here. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. Over here again the verse Ahl Bayt is brought over here. Why does that happen? Why does Allah specify a group Ahl Bayt who are purified from all impurities? Therefore this Ahlul Bayt must have a very specific and special status for Allah to purify them for all impurities. Now let's look at the Arabic first. Linguistically, Ahl refers to closeness that is with a relationship. Now this relationship can be of different forms. It can be spiritual, divine, or it can be family, biological relationship. Now when it comes to Ahl Bayt al-Nubuwwa, we're going to go further ahead. Let's look at the Quran. It is possible for someone to be related to a person, but that relation is not in the way Allah accepts. Look at the story of Prophet Noah. Prophet Noah was commanded by Allah to build the ark, which he did so. Then it came to the time where the believers and the animals had to get on the ark. Prophet Noah's son refused to do so. Then, as the rain started flowing and Prophet Noah's son said that he would find a safety on the highest mountain, Prophet Noah asks Allah for help in regards to his son. And what does Allah tell him? He's not of your Ahl. So that Ahl, that closeness that is to the Prophet Noah is not worthy of that son, because that son has gone against the words of the Prophet. See, so that Ahl over here can either have a physical relationship or it can be to a more spiritual and a more divine relationship, especially in the case of a prophet. Then we look at the word Bayt. Bayt refers to a house of person. Nubuwwa is from the root word Nabawa or Nabaya, which signifies high spiritual status. So who are the Ahl Bayt al-Nubuwwa? Does it refer to the Prophet's earthly family, such as his wife and children, or does it refer to these special higher beings who bear a closeness to the Prophet himself? So first let's start with Ahl Bayt al-Nubuwwa. Look at the word Bayt and Nubuwwa. Between Bayt and Nubuwwa there is an alif lam. So what does it say? Bayt lin-Nubuwwa. So who is this Bayt lin-Nubuwwa? Who are this Bayt who are connected to the Nubuwwa? See, from here there's a reason why I'm saying who are these people who are connected to the Bayt lin-Nubuwwa. Because over here it is pointing to the fact that this Ahl are connected to the Nubuwwa and to the status of Nubuwwa of the Prophet, not to Muhammad ibn Abdullah. There is a difference. Muhammad ibn Abdullah is a person, is a physical entity who came to this world like me and you have. But then he was given a specific other status, which is his Nubuwwa status, his status of Nubuwwat and Wilaya and Risalat. So who are the Bayt al-Nubuwwa? Is it the wives that some suggest, or is it someone else? So let's look at the verse again that we talked about earlier. Before this, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ, the verse previously, وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَا تَبَرُّجَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ الْأُولَى وَأَقِمْنَا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتَيْنَا الزَّكَاةَ وَأَطِعْنَا اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ. First, focus on two words in this verse. بيوتك in the first part, look at the word بيوتكن, and then look at ويطهركم in the last part of the verse. بيوتكن has a female pronoun. يطهركم has a male pronoun. The Quran does not make mistakes even in its pronouns. So why has the pronoun suddenly changed? If this verse of purifying this Ahlul Bayt was to refer to the wives, then why doesn't Allah use a female pronoun? Because as we are saying, that the verse previously talks about the wives of the Prophet. Therefore, the following verse should have a male pronoun, should have a female pronoun as well, but it has a male pronoun. Then another part of the verse, the use of the word inna shows exclusivity. That means it is a specific group of people. Not everyone is part of this Ahlul Bayt. It is a very specific group, which according to the Shia sources and some of the Sunni sources refer to the Ahlul Bayt who we know as today. That is the Prophet himself, Imam Ali, Lady Fatima, Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein. Then the term Rijs is used. Rijs refers to purification from Rijs refers to physical dirt, spiritual impurities, sins, doubts, kufr, and even the whisperings of shaitan. Therefore, the ones who are being purified in this verse cannot even succumb to shaitan's whisperings. So let's look at this verse a bit more detail, because this verse is very important understanding that first line of Ziyarat Jamia, that is to whom we say Ahlul Bayt al-Nubuwwa. We need to see in Quranic commentary, some specific conditions have to be taken into account. Were these two parts of the verse revealed together or separately? If they were revealed together, then the context would matter. But if they're revealed separately, then the context doesn't matter anymore. Are they about one subject or different subjects? Given that there's a change in pronoun, we can deduce that there is a change in subject over here. Was the verse revealed independently or separately from the preceding verses? According to some commentators, it was revealed separately and they were not revealed together. They were revealed separately. Therefore, it makes sense that this has to be a separate group of people who the Quran is referring to and does not have the wives of the Prophet included, as some would suggest. Another evidence that we talk about that this does not refer to any specific person who had closest to the Prophet, but refers to a specific group, is that the Quran, when it is talking about the physical house of the Prophet, it uses buyut in its plural sense. But over here it refers to Ahlul Bayt, that is Bayt in its singular form. Look at the three verses I've brought. I'll just read to you the second one. وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ وَلَا تَبَرَّجْنَ تَبَرُّجَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ الْأُولَى وَقَرْنَ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ. So over here بُيُوتِكُنَّ is using the plural form. Therefore, with all this discussion, we can conclude that the Bayt al-Nubuwwa here is the house that is the connection between this earth and the physical realms of the skies, not the physical house of the Prophet, such that it can include the wives of the Prophet who are connected to Muhammad bin Abdullah, the physical Muhammad, the one who's not related to prophethood. Just for the sake of this discussion, we are dividing the entity of the Prophet into two. Therefore, this house that is being discussed is the house of Nubuwwa and Wilaya, which is attributed with fada'il and spiritual perfection. Someone will still force through. Why can't the wives just be part of this verse? And what is the problem? Why can't we just make them part of this verse? Well, if you do make them part of this verse, then you will come across a contradiction in the Quran. Look at Surah Tahrim. Just a very brief summary of what happens in Surah Tahrim. The Prophet confides in one of his wives, but she goes and divulges the secret to another wife. And then obviously Allah has knowledge of everything. And Allah reveals a verse to the Prophet telling him what has happened. And over here, Allah tells him that if the Prophet were to divorce these wives, Allah would grant him better and more pious wives. Why would He grant him more pious wives if these wives were already purified? That means they were not purified. That means they're not part of the Ahlul Bayt of the Ahlul Bayt, as in Surah Ahzab verse 33, which talks about إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرَكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. If you say they are part of that verse, then you're coming across a contradiction in the Quran. But if you say they're not part of the verse, then there is no contradiction at all. Then we go into the next part, which shows the relationship of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt to the Prophet. Ahlul Bayt al-Nubuwwa wa mawdi' al-Risalah. Mawdi' it refers to place. So over here, and in mawdi' al-Risalah, Risalah is something that is easy to understand, message. So over here, in more accurate terms, the Imams themselves, their own wujud, is where the Risalah is. They are the bearers of Risalah and those who carry on the message of the Prophet. Let's cross-reference this with the Hadith. In the narration from Imam Baqir alayhi salam, Sudair goes to him and wants to understand who the Imam is. And then the Imam explains to him who he is. And over here he says, نحن خزان العلم وَنَحْنُ تَرَاجِمَةُ الْوَحْيِ. We are the ones who explain wahi to you. And how can someone explain what they do not have? Therefore, the Ahlul Bayt must have that Risalah within them. They must be that bearers of that Risalah for them to be able to explain the wahi in the way it was meant to be understood by us. Then let's look at the next verse. وَمُخْتَلَفَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. The Imams are the place where the angels frequent. The Ahlul Bayt themselves, their spiritual, that man is made of soul and body. We're talking about the soul, the spiritual segment of the Ahlul Bayt is where the angels frequent. The angels are not made of the same form that we are. They're not physical beings like us. Therefore, they're revealing onto that part which coincides with their same material that they are made of. And let's go. Imam Hassan alayhi salam in a sermon after the death of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Hassan alayhi salam became the caliph according to the government standards, and he also became the Imam. And he says, وَأَنَا مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِ الَّذِي كَانَ جِبْرِيلُ يُنزِلَ إِلَيْنَا وَيَسْعُدُ مِنْ إِنْدِنَا. That means, and he's saying that the Jibreel, I am one of the Ahlul Bayt, to whom Jibreel comes to us, and from us he goes. That means he frequents between us and the higher realms. And another evidence that the Ahlul Bayt themselves are the place where the angels frequent is Surah Qadir. Look at the verse, تَنَزُّلُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالرُّوحُ فِيهَا. In a hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, ask the Shias to do dalil of our imamat on this verse only. And why do we say that? تنزل الملائكة. This تنزل is in its present future tense. Like I said, the Quran does not make any mistakes even in its in the tense it uses, in the pronouns it uses, or in this case the tense that it uses. So if the Quran is saying تنزل الملائكة, if the angels will continuously frequent بإذن الله, that then this says it's not specific to the time of the Prophet where Surah Qadir was revealed. That means this frequency of the angels coming down and going back up to their spiritual realms is to go until the end of times. So who is it to whom the angels frequent? It has to be the Imam of the time, the Imam of the Ahlul Bayt, who in other hadith the Imam himself says we are the ones to whom the angels frequent. In another hadith, the Imam says we are the presence. He says that when every angel that Allah sends down for a task, the angel first begins with meeting the Imam to present the task to him. Remember, the Imam is that connection between us and the spiritual realm. So when an angel is bringing down a task, he is visiting the Imam to present to him the task that he's supposed to carry out. And therefore, and he continues the hadith, the presence of the Imam, who is the leader of divine authority, is the scene of a great mix of angels from Allah. Therefore, the Imam is this place where the angels frequent. And another hadith has the same subject matter, where the Imam says he's mukhtalaf al-malaika. This is in regards to a narration from Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, where Abu Jarud goes to the Imam, and the Imam says, why do the people hate us? Why are they so harsh towards us? We are the people to whom the angels frequent. So to summarize this whole discussion in a few lines, the Ahlul Bayt al-Nubuwwa, a specific group of people which we can also extract from the Quran, who are a specific group of people who are related to the Risalah of the Prophet. They're related to that Nubuwwa of the Prophet, not the physical structure of the Prophet, or rather the biological being of the Prophet, Muhammad bin Abdullah. They're related to the Prophet himself and his message. And they are the ones who are the place of this Risalah. They are given this Risalah. They are the ones who are going to continue the Risalah of the Prophet and continue to guide humanity towards Allah till end of times. And they're the same ones to whom the angels will frequent. And this brings us to an end in the discussion on the relationship of the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt to the Prophet. There is much more to discuss, but this suffices us for this episode. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen to patiently, and I hope this was beneficial for you.